Good evening, and welcome to the March 23rd, 2021 regular meeting of the Barefoot Bay Recreation District Board of Trustees. We will start the evening by, as we do in the past, by recognizing in a moment of silence to recognize and honor those individuals who work to protect our country and our individual welfare, security, and safety. A moment of silence, please. Thank you. Mr. Loveland, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Thank you. Doesn't sound like I'm on. Mr. Gruno, please, roll call.
Mr. Loveland. Here. Mr. Gruno, here. Mr. Morrissey. Here. Mr. Nugent. Here. Chairman MAINO.
Here.
We also have with us tonight John Coffey, Community Manager, Stephanie Brown, our District Clerk, Cliff Reppenger, our Barefoot Bay Council, and I believe I saw Matt Getch, Property Services, in the audience. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Are there any changes? Next item, we have no presentations, proclamations tonight. The next item is the minutes. Are there any changes or amendments? Actually, I back up. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda tonight? Hearing none, the agenda will stand. Approval of minutes. Are there any amendments or changes to the minutes as presented? You have minutes dated March 12, 2021. Hearing no changes, can we have a motion, please, to approve the minutes as presented?
Move to approve.
Second. Seconded by Mr. Morrissey. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passed. Treasurer's report. Mr. Gruno.
I'm going to give it to Randy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Gee, why do I do that? It's twice I've done it now.
We look alike.
I'm sorry. Yeah. I think you did it one time when he was gone or something, yeah.
This is the Treasurer's report for March 23rd, 2021. Cash balances in general fund. Petty cash, $2,500. MB&T, $3,269,726.29. Interest-bearing SB&A, $699,364.48 for total cash balances in general fund, $3,971,590.77. Total daily deposits for 3/5 through 3/15. Daily deposits, $55,784.60. Assessments received, $110,500.48. Total deposits received, $166,285.08. Expenditures for 3/5 through 3/15 that are over $5,000. ABM, $41,321.42. Card services, $5,549.44. Omega Technology, $5,615.41. Watertronic, $6,124.15. Florida Municipal Insurance and Trust, $36,908. Total expenditures, $5,000 and above, $95,518.42. Expenditures under $5,000, $49,742.09. Total expenditures, $145,260.51.
Thank you. We have a motion to accept the Treasurer's report and approve the bills as presented. Moved by Mr. Nugent. Do we have a second? Seconded by Mr. Gruno. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Just a comment, too. I look on the bill here, John. Golf cart dividers and that they put in the golf carts over there. Great job. I mean, that's just a great thing. Whether people use them or not, I don't know if you've all seen them, but they're roll-down screens, plastic that comes down between the seat and a golf cart. So, again, protecting for the COVID. If people want to use them, they're there to help them. So it was a good deal. Thank you. Audience participation. I have no slips. Please give your name, your address, in 3 minutes.
Yeah, the name's Rick Bernson, 920 Cashew Circle. I know one of the items that's on the agenda is Jeff put on the agenda, and I'd like to thank him for it. I believe he put it on for moving discussion a little bit closer to the agenda item, but I don't think you're really gaining anything by doing that. I think the city I came from, I know this isn't where I came from, but 70,000 some people, they would have an agenda item. The aldermen, trustees, would speak their case. And then it would go out for audience participation, because then they can actually hear what the trustees are actually saying and what their opinions on something. For somebody to come up and just speak on an agenda item before we know what any input from a trustee, it's pretty hard to. I don't know if you get what I'm saying on that. And I'd like to see more things moved into town hall meetings, not workshops, because town hall meetings, because then we can discuss stuff with the trustees, not just get up here in the beginning again and say something, and then it just kind of like goes out the door. And the other thing I had, and it's not what Jeff said, but committees. Maybe the trustees need to bring some committees back, like the buildings, or I should say property services, and food and beverage. There's a lot of things that could be adjusted, and not going out all the time to TLC and asking them to draw drawings and whatever, and then we just keep spending all this money. I mean, in the last 5 or 7 years, or 4 or 5 years, 3-4 years that I've been here, all the money I've seen spent on conceptual drawings, and it's outrageous. I mean, so yeah, my main thing was, I think we got to have somehow get discussion in after the trustees speak, so that we can say something about what you just spoke about. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Public participation? Hearing none. Thank you, sir. We're going to discuss this later. I appreciate your comments, but I, for one, completely disagree with it, because this is official legislative representative body set to make decisions on behalf of Barefoot Bay, not with the community. So, again, thank you. We'll discuss it later. The next agenda item is unfinished business, phased reopening discussion.
Mr. Chairman, trustees, residents here and watching at home, this is our regular update on proposed reopenings. Staff does not have any recommendations for further openings at this time, although we are starting to work on probable recommendations at the next meeting concerning increasing capacities, probably 1st of May in our buildings. That's something that we're taking a little bit of time to look at each building one-on-one, but I wanted to put that out there that's coming at the next meeting, but for right now, our recommendation is to make no changes.
Do we need a motion, do you think, if we're not changing anything? No. Any discussion, questions, comments for John? No. I mean, I'm fine with this. Good. Mr. Nugent. Is your mic on?
It's been brought to my attention, and I enjoy it myself, when we have the ice buckets that are available and the small little trash cans. Is that a possibility, or are we waiting till phase 4 for that?
Are you talking about the ice buckets by the course?
Yeah.
The course?
Oh.
He's talking about that big bucket. They used to have ice in a big bucket, so as you came around from 9, you could fill your cooler up, not your cooler, but whatever. Get ice in your cup.
But the other thing I was speaking about is, right at the beginning of the picnic area, you had a brown cabinet with ice water in it, in cups.
Both those are doable. We have virtually no ability to maintain any level of sanitation with that. So, if that's something the board wants us to do, we can do it. If not, I can speak to Mr. Cruz and possibly bring back recommendation. Ideally, we get back to old normal as soon as possible. There was an interesting statistic out over the weekend that Florida passed the 2 million vaccination mark, and that sounds great until you think about we have 22 million people in the state. Now, fortunately, I think we have a higher percentage of 10% vaccinated in our community now. But unless y'all want us to do that, that's something I'll engage Mr. Cruz about and possibly bring back a recommendation on the 9th.
Comments, question?
Yeah, would you want all 6 of them? I went out with Ernie when he gave me a tour of the course, and they don't look easy to sanitize. How about one by the 19th hole that they could easily get to and keep clean?
Yeah, I would think that would work as they turn the corner. They could get ice water, etc. My whole issue is the fact that why would we worry about sanitation when we don't worry about sanitation when people are pulling out of the markers in the golf course? They're not sanitized.
I had heard comments to me, not about the water, because I think people were still a little leery, but I had heard the comment also about why don't we have the bucket there to, I guess, I'm not sure, but I guess you could get ice out of a bucket there by the clubhouse or by the carts or something. But it's, again, is it something we would like him to just look at and see where we are, or do we put it off on the next phase? My answer to people when they asked me was, I think it's coming, but I'm not sure where we are in our upgrading of our phases. So what's the pleasure of the board? Yes, sir.
While we're on unfinished business, I had received a telephone call just before I come down to the meeting here tonight from a concerned citizen or committee neighbor of Pool 2. Okay. They said you have 30 people, 30 homes around Pool 2, and they were very irate that it's not open at this time. I believe there's an update coming from Mr. Coffey this morning, tonight, about why it's not open now. I think it's the health department or something. I had to tell them that because I know that all the permits and everything's been approved, everything's cleared. But from what I understand, there's one item that has to be attended to. But he kept me on there for quite a while, and I appreciate the fact that he called me. Because at least I know there's people that are concerned about
sure.
too, you know. But yeah, so on unfinished business, I would like to ask Mr. Coffey to update us for this gentleman tonight. Thank you.
I think you can do that in your report, are you, or are you going to do it now?
The final inspection by the health department scheduled for Thursday. We do not anticipate any problems. With that being said, this is the Pool 2 project, so when something can go wrong, it generally does. But hopefully the pool will be open first thing Friday morning. Once the inspection is approved, I will send an email out to the community notifying them that it'll be open Friday morning. But keep our fingers crossed. The water quality is as good as it can get. Everything's working fine in the pit. We just need the blessing of the health department inspection.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, before we get off it, what is the pleasure about the water or ice? Or
I think on the ice and the water buckets, as long as we're following protocol, if we've set a sterilization type of protocol throughout the bay, and as long as we're following some kind of protocol, I'm not opposed to whatever John and his staff feel is appropriate. What I would be opposed to is if we start getting all the one-offs that, you know, Betty Jones wants this now, and, you know, Mike Smith wants that, and then we have to, like, make those one-off decisions, because we actually have a plan of action, and I'd like to see us kind of stick with it. We're almost at the end of this field, and so whatever that is, and if that sterilization or that sanitization doesn't have any impact, then, you know, whatever John and Ernie think.
yeah, I would agree. I don't think we want to direct them to do this, but I think we would suggest that they look at it. Again, I think the ice and the water is becoming more and more important now. As if you golf today or if you golfed yesterday, you wanted some water, you wanted some ice, you wanted to refill your cup because it's getting warmer, and on those days you just need it out there. So I guess, John, we would just ask that you look at this. If you think it's something you can do, fine. If not, the next phase, just let us know. Is that good enough? Yes, sir?
Yep.
Okay, we don't need any other motion. New business. Selection of RFP Evaluation Committee member for Shopping Center Electrical Upgrade Project. Mr. Coffey.
Yes, Chairman Maino. Per the policy manual, RFP committees are required for projects projected to cost more than $50,000. This project is a combination of two previously planned projects, electrical infrastructure within the shopping center and addressing lighting in the parking lot. It's changed slightly in the fact that analysis of the system doesn't indicate that we need a lot more light poles, but we need better lighting. And this also will move a couple lighting poles in the front to address possible future ADA improvements. The RFP will hit the street tomorrow and close on April 23rd. The evaluation committee will meet twice to review this. The composition, there's 3 voting members, 1 user department person, which would be Mr. Getz, a non-employee resident voting member, which will be Chairman Emeritus Klosky, and a trustee. Chairman Maino and myself are non-voting members. So the board needs to appoint 1 person to be a voting member. The meetings are scheduled for April 27th at 1 p.m. and a follow-up May 4th at 1 p.m. And we anticipate getting this back to you on the May 14th agenda.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation. We need to appoint 1 member, 1 trustee as a voting member. Does anyone want to volunteer?
I've done one before.
I'm sorry?
I did one for Building A before.
Would you, Mr. Gruno, would you like to sit on the committee?
I'll take it.
All right. We need a motion to appoint Mr. Gruno to the committee.
I'll make a motion to appoint Mr. Gruno to the committee.
Seconded by Mr. Morrissey. Any discussion? Thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you, sir. Building A renovations project, change orders 9, 10, and 10A.
The only thing I like talking less about Pool 2 is the Building A project. But these 2 change orders address unforeseen issues. Anyone who's followed Barefoot Bay for the last several years know that my first and foremost concern is to do the job as best as possible and address old outstanding issues in a cost-effective manner. These 2 change orders will add about $6,000 to the cost of the project. However, the largest, most significant, I think, from the public's perspective is a request for 45 additional days that would take it from the March 20th deadline to May 4th. Since this agenda item went out last Tuesday, we've made some good progress towards resolving some of these issues that are addressed, such as the additional hand sink, all the flooring and modifications to the entrance wall, the CCTV system. Going briefly, after a couple of conference calls and a meeting between the owner of the company and Brevard County, the hand sink tie-in to the grease trap system was approved. If that had not been approved, we'd been looking at breaking up the floor into the men's room to find a sanitary sewer line. The flooring is scheduled to be poured tomorrow, the concrete, and once that's done, everything starts rolling as far as the walls can go up around the walk-in cooler. And we have signed off designs for the interior door assembly area so the doors can be ordered and the walls can go up. This project, therefore, this change orders 9 and 10, and what I call 10A, the 45 days. We recommend approval at cost of $5,943.85, an additional 45 days added to the contract.
Thank you, sir.
I'll
okay.
make a motion that the board approves change order 9, 10, and 10A.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Gruno. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Authorization for the chairman to execute shopping center re-roofing contract.
Mr. Reppinger can speak to the specifics of the contract. I know he has been back and forth with the owner of the company over the last couple business days because we've talked about other issues and he's kept me up to date on this. As you are aware, for the audience's understanding, when this was bid out, we had 2 bids, and unfortunately, we did not get the contract signed by January 1 when building codes changed, and we had to go back and redesign part of the roof to meet the new building code. And the owner of the company came back in with a revised proposal of $202,000. Keep in mind the alternate bid when we did the RFP last year was $216,100. While the increase is not anything that anyone enjoys, the decision before you is to either authorize Chairman MAINO to execute this contract and move this project into the execution phase or rebid it out. Staff has no confidence if we rebid it out, we'll get a better price. It's always possible, but possible and plausible are not the 2 things. There is sufficient fund balance to cover the additional costs. Mr. Reppinger can speak to the specifics of the contract before you if you have any questions.
Mr. Reppinger.
Staff does recommend authorization to Chairman MAINO to execute the contract.
Thank you.
There are 2 additional edits from what is in the agenda package. One is to section 2.4, which I've handed out prior to the meeting. The contractor was requesting that he be able to work on weekends, select weekends, depending on scheduling, in order to expedite the project and address any kind of weather-related concerns that they may have. So the only, I cleared that with Mr. Coffey, and the only additional requirement that we have on that is that they provide 24 hours notice in advance of any weekend work. I talked to the contractor today, and they indicated that they may even be able to give a schedule, an advanced schedule of work in advance of giving the 24-hour notice as well. The other changes in section 8.4. The contractor just requested a change. It's really not changing the substance of the term there, just the wording to make it clear that the contract can be subcontracted in parts, as long as the contractor provides written notice and gets permission from the project manager, which is Mr. Coffey. That's no different than what the original contract provided. It's just that the language changed slightly. And so what would happen if they are going to subcontract portions of the work, they'll advise Mr. Coffey, and unless there is some issue related to that contractor not meeting any kind of federal or state law guidelines or standards, they would be approved, and we would at least have notice of the subs performing work on the district property. So those are the only 2 changes that we have.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation to authorize to execute the final contract. Can we have a motion such?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Morrissey. Discussion.
I think we should move on. It's been half a year now, and our luck at getting bids, we could put it out for bid again and not even get somebody to bid on it. So I would say staff recommendation, let's go with it.
Cliff, what exactly does it mean when it says the contractor may assign any portion of this agreement? Like, what would he be assigning? I'm not sure I follow that.
Which section are you referring to?
8.4.
Yeah, so that's basically subcontracting the work.
Okay.
That's a subbing.
Okay, any other discussion questions?
Yeah, we discussed this in last year's budget. Cliff, can you refresh my memory for me and for some of the homeowners watching? What was the delay that we couldn't get the contract done by January 1st?
Well, there were a lot of different issues that happened in between the award of the contract and the execution of the final product. Basically, it was some of the issues that we were dealing with the referendum issue. We ran into obviously trying to ramp up DOR and all that stuff, and so the contract really got kind of bumped below on status level behind some of those really time-sensitive issues. By the time we circled back around to it in November, there was a lack of understanding of what the building code changes were going to do. Candidly, had I understood that that would have had that kind of effect on the bid, we would have expedited this a lot faster. But unfortunately, we didn't realize that, and so it just got kind of downgraded below those other items that we were working on, and by the time we got to it, it would have been too late to apply for the permitting to get in under the changes, and really didn't realize that the significance of the code changes as far as what that would do on the bidding side of it. You're free to rebid as Mr. Coffey's told you, and whether the bid that the contractor gave you or revised bid is reasonable based on the work changes, I cannot tell you, but you can rebid it if you want to. So that's one of the options.
Thank you.
Okay. We had the motion on the floor, right? Correct? Okay. Any other discussion? We had a second always. Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Oh, I'm sorry, say no. It passes 5-0. Okay. Item D, amendment to rules for the Board of Trustees having to do with public comment. We can refer this to Mr. Coffey, although there is not a recommendation. So, John, you could explain how this came here.
Trustee Gruneau asked me to place this on the agenda regarding audience participation. I asked Mr. Reppenger if he could come up with the language because he's the ultimate interpreter of the intent of this language. I'll defer to those two gentlemen as I was the facilitator of getting this on the agenda.
Thank you. You all know already I have a lot of comments on this, and you know I'm against this completely for many reasons, but I guess we'll start discussion simply by opening it up to anyone else.
I brought it up after the meeting with the Aquazumba folks. We had audience participation at the beginning of the meeting, but we were nowhere as close to the agenda item. Now, I agree 100% with Chairman MAINO that once we get to a board meeting, that's not the time for the back and forth banter between the board members and the audience. So I like the way he runs the board meetings. However, as one of the gentlemen earlier said, we're not getting the audience participation. We're not taking the pulse of the Bay unless they call us up individually and talk to us. So one of the suggestions I had was in the regular meeting, maybe we can have the audience participation relate to the section that we're in. Because I can tell you that after the Aquazumba crush, my brain was numb. I couldn't remember half of what they were all talking about. So the idea is to try to get a little bit more audience participation at the relevant time of the meeting.
Anyone else before me?
Yeah, I have a comment to that. I believe honestly that the audience is given an opportunity to participate, and really they should be limited to participate around the agenda item at the very beginning of the meeting. I like the way Chairman MAINO runs it, and my concern is that the meeting is going to turn out to be ad infinitum in length because we're going to allow everybody to chime in on every issue.
Thank you.
I've sat on both sides of this fence.
I'm sorry?
I said I've sat on both sides of this fence. I've sat where the meeting is run the way that we're running it and where homeowners have come up and spoken to the items at the time. I think that when Mr. Burnson spoke earlier, he mentioned something that I've always been an advocate of, and that's town halls. I think that if we were to provide more town halls with upcoming agenda items, I don't think that we'd be having this conversation now on where the resident has an opportunity to speak at a meeting. Having said that, as an elected official on this board, I'm here to serve the homeowners. So what they have to say, they are my boss in respect to my sitting on this board. So what they have to say is important for me to hear. I just think that we need to be aware that we've got to provide them with a platform to be heard. And I agree with Mr. Burnson, that platform is a town hall. So that tells me that we're either not providing enough town halls or we're putting too many controversial things on our agenda.
Mr. Morrissey.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Loveland. I think town halls would be the way to go on this item. It's kind of like leading the person behind the horse or something, putting the horse before the whatever the old saying is. I don't know. But I think that I agree with the Mr. Loveland about having town halls. I think that's very important. You get to have a participation from them, and they know what they're doing, what we're doing, I should say, a little bit more clearer what we have to do and what we do. I think town halls is important for to have them instead of changing anything here that we have. It's going to prolong the meeting, I believe, by doing it a different way.
Thank you.
And Mr. Minor, I'd like to add to that whatever your decision is on this is a decision that I will certainly 100% support, because as the chairman of this board, it is your decision on how these, at these meetings, how these discussions go.
And I appreciate that. And a couple of things. Town halls, you're right. Town halls are very important, and they're good to have those, and we could have more of them. The point is, though, that the 2 meetings we have a month are official meetings where we are elected representatives. We're a representative body of the government to pass the business of the Bay. So it's not a time when the folks out there have any say whatsoever into what we do. Mr. Loveland had a meeting with people, and he got a lot of input on items. I get letters, I get phone calls from people, I talk to people. By the time I get to a meeting, I pretty much know what I'm doing about that agenda item, and I don't rely on anyone in that audience to get up and tell me how to vote. I don't need that. I've looked, I've done my research, I've come up with things, and I know both sides of an issue, and so I pretty much need it. To have someone get up on every agenda item, you'd end up with a meeting like we had when Holy Cannoli lease was up, and Mr. Loveland will remember that. It was a nightmare. It was a circus. There was the one time we allowed the public to get up and speak and speak and speak. I almost got up and walked out of the meeting. That's not the way you run official meetings. We are here to do the business of the Bay. The other thing is the time limit. We try to get these meetings over as soon as possible because we just put someone on another committee. We have the treasurer goes in and approves bills. I go in every Friday and sign checks, sign bills. We have RFP workshops coming up. We do sit on a lot of committees, and we don't get paid. You know, we are doing this in the goodness of our heart because we're concerned about the residents of the Bay and doing the right thing. So one of the reasons we don't have as many town halls probably is because of that. Now, I'm not against town halls. At a town hall, you can get up and you can, are we still on? You can get up and you can speak and have a dialogue with the board. I've said that over and over. But we are not, this board meeting twice a week is not a community group. It's not a community meeting. It's not an HOA. It's not a town hall meeting. It is an official elected board by the people, elected to do their work. And I think if you pass this motion to have people getting up before every agenda item, trying to persuade board members how to vote at that time, there's no other body that I know of that does that. Can you imagine the legislature getting up and saying, we have 3 items on the agenda, let's let everybody in the state get up and tell us what they think before the agenda item? It's just not the way you run official meetings. And I'm very strong on this because I thought I could get on this board to help the board run in an official capacity to make it more efficient, et cetera. And that's what I've tried to do, but this is I think this is a very important item. Again, many of you know I sat on with school boards for 30-some years, and at budget meetings, at town hall meetings, or not at town hall meetings, but at meetings, if you allow the public to get up at every agenda item, and we've done it a couple of times, it turns out to be a circus sometime. And I'm just not for that. So I will vote no on this motion. And I don't mean to be so strong on it, but I feel very strongly about this. So.
Well, my end goal was to increase audience participation. And I'm with you at board meetings as far as limiting the amount of participation at the board meetings. But I'm getting a sense from the constituents that, 1, they feel coming to the meeting is a waste, and 2, they're not being heard. And so what my goal is, what the mission that I'm trying to accomplish is find a way that we can facilitate the audience participation. And there could be several different ways of doing it.
And we don't, you know, if you've noticed since I've taken over as chairman, we have a 3-minute rule. And by the way, every single official body you can find has the 3-minute rule. And we have the 3-minute rule, but only once did I stop someone more than 3 minutes. We've let them go on over 3 minutes. The only time we stopped them was we had about 20 people who wanted to speak. And so I tried to keep it to the 3 minutes. We're not trying to limit them. They're in audience participation. People can. Another question, by the way, Mr. Nugent brought this up to me. He said, you know, why aren't we just limiting their speech to agenda items? We're not doing that even. We're allowing the people to get up during audience participation and speak to agenda items or any other item they feel is important to the Bay at that time. So I think we're giving every opportunity for people to be heard. Tonight, you know, we had one gentleman who wanted to get up and speak. If people have something that they're trying to get across to you, to the board members, they have an opportunity to come here to contact you. If they don't think you're doing a good job, they're going to vote you out, just like any other legislative body works. So I won't go on, but again, you've heard me. Any other discussion?
Well, maybe the compromise on this isn't, we allow the homeowners to get up and speak to 3 minutes prior to an agenda item. And we allow any homeowner, because we say that you need to have a slip to get up and speak, yet anybody who wants to at random can come in and get up and speak without a slip. What if our compromise was those people that want to speak specifically at the point of an agenda item, we allow them with a slip that have actually, we know exactly how many people are going to get up and speak. We don't open that up. And if they want to speak at that point, or if they want to speak previous to the meeting start during audience participation, they can. But nobody can speak to an agenda item that does not turn in the previous slip to speak to that item. I mean, it sounds like we're looking more at logistics on when they speak, not necessarily whether they speak.
Well, I think the point, though, is that, and I understand what you're saying, and I'm not for it. I'm sorry, I'm not for that. I understand your point. The point is, though, once the audience participation is over, they have no other say-so in this meeting. The elected body is the one that does the work of the Bay. It's over for the public. We only do that for transparency. They do not have a say into what we're doing here. It's not a community meeting. It's not a commune where everybody jumps up and makes a vote. They have no vote. The only vote they have is to elect us to the board, and if they don't like what we do, they elect someone else. So again, I'm trying to run this as an official meeting, but so question would be, we have no recommendation from staff. In order to do anything, there would have to be a motion. Does anyone want to make a motion, or
I'll withdraw.
well, you didn't. There's no motion at all. So if there's no motion, the item simply dies. Cliff, am I correct? There's no motion. It
There's
simply
no
dies.
need to take any action if there's no motion.
Yeah. So again, I will ask you: is there any motion on this item? Hearing no motion, the item is dead. Manager's report.
Resident relations update. The ARC meeting on the 16th, there were 16 consent items approved, 9 others, 7 were approved, 2 approved with stipulations. Next ARC meeting is next Tuesday at 9 a.m. in this building. 37 items on the agenda. The VC meeting for this Friday, 26th, has 12 cases for it. Following violation committees, April 19th. One thing of note, staff is currently working on revising a new and improved initial letter, sort of the kinder and gentler, did you know you might have a violation letter without using the word violation for non-urgent cases. This is being implemented based on feedback from trustees and residents that hopefully helps us keep the high level of voluntary compliance. The downside is for non-voluntary compliance, it will add a week and a half to 2 weeks to the process because this kinder, gentler letter does not qualify as the initial observation for starting the violation case. Also, just wanted to give you a little update on how staff has been doing household new homeowner orientations. Little statistics from last summer: 76% of genuine home sales. We don't offer orientations to the people who are flippers or buying rental properties. You may notice some months have over 100%, and that's because some people buy their homes before coming down here. Overall, the residents I've interacted with have been very pleased with the one-on-one attention they've been receiving. Food and beverage updates. Kathy's folks continue small-scale catering out of the 19th hole, and all staff attended the recent tri-annual state alcohol liability training, and Kathy is trying to one-up Ernie on the driving business, and so she says historically we haven't had music on Easter Sunday, but this year after your rib roast, ham, or roast leg of lamb dinner, come out and hear the Phoenix Band on Lakeside Stage from 2 to 6 p.m. Property services, the pool techs and pool supervisors are all trained with the new pool pit equipment in Pool 2, ready to go Friday morning. Installed the new sheds behind Building A, continued to do what we can within Building A during the work being done by the vendor. Replaced speakers and wires at the lounge, working on our annual clean out the trash of the canals, coordinated a temporary internet service to the lounge. If you see something hanging off of Building A and a post sticking out of the ground back of the admin building, that's our temporary internet service while the CCTV fiber project is going on in Building A, and addressed DOR violations. Special hours at the golf course on Easter Sunday. The course will close at 2 p.m. April 4th, and last cart goes out at 10 p.m. And a big congratulations to the club champions as pictured here. Later and in the minutes, their names are listed. No offense, Mr. Chairman, but as I told Mr. Cruz when I saw this picture, this is definitely roses between two thorns.
Mm-hmm. That's for sure.
And just
I came in third, by the way. So
general information, we have a budget workshop this Thursday and possibly 2 in May if needed. And Beach restroom project, staff will have on the next agenda a proposal for the FDEP permitting. And I believe Mr. Reppinger will have some follow-up information because it's been all hands on deck pushing the beach restroom project forward. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Couple of comments. Food and beverage, big shout out to Kathy Mendez and her staff. She has been putting on the lunches for the Men's Golf League on Wednesdays, and she did the thing for the club championship. They put together some sandwiches that are just fabulous, just absolutely fabulous. Does a great job. And also, we do want to congratulate Ernie and Bill and his staff on running a club championship. As I said, I didn't win it. I've got a bad shoulder. No, I didn't win it, but I had to hand out the trophies to everyone. And I do appreciate the fact that they put on a good tournament, so congratulations to them. Mr. Reppinger.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since Mr. Coffey left off with the beach restroom, I'll give you the synopsis of where we're at on that. So at the last meeting, I had advised you that the recommendation of the site engineer was to proceed with a approval from FDEP, which is what Mr. Coffey made reference to under his report. In the interim period, TLC approached the county to talk about the technical aspects of their requirements, and the county appeared to indicate that they would not accept DEP's approval, as the site engineer had indicated that he thought that they would. So there's been a little bit of cross-communication there with the county as far as what they will accept and whether FDEP would actually satisfy their requirements. And so that is unclear at the moment. The last communication that we received, I believe today, indicated that the county had identified what they felt was the appropriate section for a variance from their coastal management section of their code. In looking at that section, I don't believe what the county has identified as even the correct section for a variance under their code. So there definitely is a little bit of education that needs to be had to determine which section actually applies. I think it's a building code deviation and not a coastal setback or a coastal construction area variance. Which is what in elevation, which is what the county is citing to. So in any event, what we plan on doing is having a meeting with the site engineer and TLC to make sure that we're all on the same page about what the requirements actually are. TLC is going to, if approved by the board, pursue that FDEP approval, which they're going to need anyway, and then we're going to have to meet with the county to determine which section, if a variance is required, is going to be applicable. That's probably a decision that's going to be made above the level where those dialogues have happened to date. So that will happen once everyone on our side has a chance to make sure that we understand what the technical requirements and where those requirements are found, so that we know that we're applying for and asking for the right thing. So once we get that dialogue straightened out, I'll be probably having a meeting with Mr. Coffey and or the engineers and county management to make sure that the county has directed us in the right regard as far as what variance, if a variance is going to be required, needs to be applied for. So Cliff, I don't mean to interrupt you. So what is our time frame on this? I mean, where do we go? Well, I can't give you an exact time frame on where you're at as far as a variance because I don't know whether it's required or not still.
Okay, but I mean, we have to ask someone what is required. So have we done that? Do we? Yeah,
right now the county believes that you would need a variance based on the sections that have been advised apply.
Okay.
Again, I think that they are not advising of the right variance to apply for, so that's a whole different issue.
But if they say this is the section and you apply for a variance and they okay it, why do we care?
Well, I don't think you have a strong likelihood of getting a variance under
Under
the
that
section they've
section.
identified. That's part of the problem. So, in any event, you're probably, you'll see the FDEP approval on your next agenda, so that's a time frame for that.
Okay.
When that, how quickly FDEP grants that, I don't know. But we will have the dialogue within the next week or so, collectively on our side, to then approach the county. So I expect that meeting will probably be set in the next week, week and a half or so after we meet. And then we'll have guidance from them as far as exactly what we need to do. Once we file a variance application, it's probably at least a month period for the hearing to get set and a hearing to be held. I mean, you're probably in the next month after you apply for it. So depending on what they need, that's about your time frame. So I mean, you're looking about probably 2 months by the time you get it resolved. But we'll know where we're going by the time we next meet. I mean, we'll have a much better understanding of what it is that we're doing.
John, is that parking lot torn up now? I haven't been to the beach out there. Is the beach parking lot, it's still okay? It's not torn up or anything, is it? No, okay.
So that's the variance issue.
We may have been better off just to go ahead and do this a few months ago and put the whole thing in.
Well,
you know, it's unfortunate, yeah.
Well, the approvals that you're seeking from DEP, you're going to need anyway. So if that resolves the issue, great. And if not, and if it looks too difficult on the variance side, then
Sure.
then you won't do it.
Yep.
We'll know that going in. It hasn't been that time intensive yet. Just been a lot of communication. In any event, the second issue is on the DOR cases. I sent out the most latest and greatest report right before the meeting tonight, so you have a copy of that in your email. You'll note on the report that there are 2 new cases that have moved into litigation since the last report went out that have been filed on. There have been 2 cases that are that have come into compliance. 2 cases are on the verge of compliance, and then the rest of the cases, the majority of what you see that has not moved, if they have not moved, are ones that we have ownership issues. So you'll see on the report that there are ones that either an owner is deceased or there's nobody that we have been able to locate. So we are, even though it may not look like there's much to report there, we are doing people locates on the ones that we can't find people. We're doing the best we can to try to find them to get compliance. And we're sending out demand letters where we can reach people with whatever information we found on the locates. So if we can get to them, and if they pick up service on a demand letter, then we can serve them with a lawsuit. So if they haven't been served, you'll just note on the report which ones have been served and which ones haven't. And that is all I have.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Mr. Coffey or Mr. Reppinger? Questions, comments? I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Not Mr. Coffey, Councilman. You're talking about the difference. From what I understand, you're saying, would it make a difference if the location for the restroom is in a different part of the parking lot?
No.
Well, I was asked that question too. What if we moved it back? It wouldn't make any difference?
No, because the coastal construction line is too far to the west. So I believe anything that's west of A1A or anything that's east of A1A is inside your coastal construction line. So it doesn't matter where you put it; you're still going to meet the same standards.
I'd hate to see this go on and on and on, and like what happened, we didn't get the permit in time for this, that, and the other things.
This will resolve in one way or another. It's going to resolve one way or the other. I think it will resolve positively.
I hope so.
But we'll see.
Yeah, thank you. I was asked the same question, Mike. What if we moved it further back in the parking lot? But I forgot to ask that. Yeah. Any other comments, questions? Board member comments. Mr. Loveland.
Yeah, I don't really have any comments, but I would like to ask John to put on our next agenda the topic of 4 town halls, meaning 1 per quarter for this board to discuss the possibility of having those as an annual part of our meeting schedule.
Excellent idea. I would agree with that. Mr. Gruno.
Have to agree with Randy. I think a quarterly town hall would do it. Also, thank you, John, and your staff for revising that violations letter. When I was on the violations committee, many times I would perk up and say, that is a very angry letter. It's bolds, it's caps, it's got all kinds of crazy fonts in it, and for someone that didn't realize they violated something, that is a nasty letter. If I have no problem stretching it out a week and a half. If we send a nice letter to someone, they go, oh, I didn't realize that, and fix it, guess what? We've got the outcome that we wanted without going through a whole bunch of rigmarole. So with that, thank you for picking up and following that on.
Thank you. Mr. Morrissey.
No, I just what I think the town hall is a good idea. You know.
Yeah,
That's
I do
about it.
too. As I said, there's no problem. I have no problem getting information or meeting with people. It only was at these 2 meetings. And Mr. Nugent.
Yeah, I think a town hall is an excellent idea. And I thought we had a very good meeting.
Thank you, sir. I have no other comments. I would ask for a motion to adjourn. So move. We are adjourned. Okay, what am I signing here?